Bless you.
Thank you.
I think we're live.
I think we're live.
Fantastic. Hello, everyone. I'm Martin Reed. I manage the communications team at the Society of Authors. This event is part of the free SoA at Home Festival, which we're running for 12 weeks during lockdown until the 9th of July. All the sessions are free, but if you can afford to donate a few pounds to the Authors Emergency Fund to support authors in financial difficulty due to the health crisis, you can do that via, there should be a link over the top right hand side, which is that way, I think. So over the past few weeks, we've dropped in for tea with Philip Pullman, Joanne Harris, Roger McGough. For this, our 7th afternoon tea, our host is not an easy man to sum up in a quick intro. BAFTA nominated, award-winning poet and playwright, British and Ethiopian. You can find his words not only in books and broadcasts, but also written massive on landmarks in Manchester, Addis Ababa, London, Huddersfield and beyond. He is a 4-time honorary doctor, is a member of the Council of the Society of Authors, has an MBE for services to literature, was awarded the 2019 Pen Pinter Prize. He's Chancellor of Manchester Uni and is one of this year's Booker Prize judges, but he's still found time to let us drop in today. And the other day, he described himself, among other things, in an interview as a northerner and a collection of molecules, which I personally really quite liked. His memoir, My Name is Why, which is here. I don't know whether that's, yeah, that should be on screen now. Was published by Canongate last year, and it's one of the most astonishing, raw, generous books that I have read. Lemn Sissay, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. It's an honour. And I'm just watching all of the names of the places that people are from. We've got Dubai, Shrewsbury, I think Ethiopia is in there. Sligo in Ireland is there as well. So there's people from all over the world. Antwerp is there, and Manchester as well. A few friends.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Brilliant, pleasure. Just the format for today is around 25-30 minutes of talking with Lem, and then we'll spend as much time as we can getting to taking questions from you all. If we spot any questions popping in as we go through, then we might get to some Florida. Good grief.
Yeah, Florida
and Liverpool.
Yeah. Hatfield counts, yeah. Carry on.
Just bob your questions in the right-hand side as and when they occur to you, and we will get to as many as we can at the end. Now, I am going to make myself tiny, and so that Lem can take pride of place there.
What's up, people?
Lem, we're on the verge, apparently, of easing our way out of lockdown. How have the past few months been for you?
I feel lucky, really, because I've been judging the Booker Prize. So that means I've been reading books day and night. I've read 121 books in 121 days since February the 1st. And that's my job. You know, it's not a great payer, but it's certainly kept me occupied throughout lockdown. I've been unable to do live events, so unfortunately, this is a great opportunity to say I wish I was in Ireland. I was doing a whole set of gigs over there, or Abu Dhabi, or the Emirates Literature Festival, or Ethiopia. All of those places I can't go to, but it has given me time to reflect on what really is important, and that's been a blessing for me, to be honest. And I've not been to Wigan either, you know, and if you've ever been to Wigan, you'll know how much I'm missing out.
So in terms of, I was going to ask later on, have you read any good books recently? How have you found the process of doing that in isolation? I mean, it's you were saying the other day that it's been soft copy, PDFs that you've been reading from, not the hard copy books, and
that's right.
That's quite a different feel to the process, maybe?
I'm always talking, you know. I'm on stage trying to articulate my experience, trying to form bridges between myself and people who've not had an experience like mine. All of our experiences are unique. And I'm a performer, you know. I like the dynamic of the closing of the gap between audience and person on stage. And that's a lifelong kind of journey, actually, sort of that dynamic, and it is never the same twice. But to be a writer, you have to be a reader. And as Gabby Wood said, from who runs the book prize, she said something like, a good writer is a good reader first.
Yeah,
you know, yeah. And my life pattern has not been one who went to university. It's not been one who could be easily actually put into a box. But one really important element of being engaged as a writer that I don't believe that I've spent as much attention on as I could have done is to read.
Yeah.
See, so this opportunity to read is exactly what I needed. So I almost feel like some kind of higher power has said to me, stop talking, start reading. You know, and I'm in the world's best book club. Emily Wilson, Lee Childs, Samir Rahman, Margaret Busby, and myself. We get to hang out with each other every couple of months and talk about the books we've read. So this is a golden opportunity for me personally, and it's also a way of being able to give back, because the person who wins the Booker Prize, it is a life-changing prize. You know, it's the world's most famous fiction prize, and I've seen the effect it has on writers, and it's basically the ability to give a writer a house. Literally, you know, a house. That is how much the writer will make over their career through being a Booker Prize winner. A house and a boat. You know, so and it goes on. So it's a serious responsibility. It's a way of being able to give back, because it doesn't pay. It pays lower than the minimum wage, but it also is feeding me creatively. It's just what I need to do. The first thing that my publishers asked me when I finished My Name Is Why, and considering the reaction it's had, is, are you going to write another? Like, we need it. We would like it tomorrow if possible. And they then said to me, if you want to do the Booker Prize, you're going to have to put off writing the second book, the memoir, and it's the Booker Prize for me. And I did that instinctively, but actually it turns out that for my next book, it is the best thing I could have done. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Well, it comes back to that. To be a writer, you need to be a reader, and now you're having the time to reflect.
You need to be a listener.
Absorb. Yeah.
I believe. You know, it's very. Because of this medium, this is me speaking out, right? It's you speaking out. We assume that there is some spoken trick. You can't speak a book. The more you speak it, the less of a book it comes. If I had £1 for everybody who came to me and said, I've got a great story, one day I'll write it, and then they spend half their time talking to me about that story, every time they talk it becomes less of a book. You know, so fortunately, I'm a writer and a performer, so I've had my cake and eat it, you know. But it is important to listen and to read.
So in terms of how you've read these 121 books, and over the past few months, everybody's lives have been turned upside down in one way or another. Some authors seem to be feeling it more than others. Some fit. How has lockdown changed the way that you're able to work? I mean, do you have a morning, morning, afternoon, evening routine? Do you have a kind of strict discipline that you work to, or? How has it changed how you actually work?
I don't have a strict routine as a writer. Some writers do. They'll write 500 words a day, 1,000 words a day, etc., etc. I don't have that. In fact, there is a commissioned poem which I should be writing for the National Brain Appeal, and I've not been able to get my head around it for quite some time. That's a funny thing. I should write that down. I've done a lot of research into the poem, but I can't get it, and it will come, but not in time for the deadline. That's sort of life. What was your question?
It's in terms of how the experience of lockdown over the last few months has changed. Because you talked about the tours that you can't do, the live readings that you can't do. How has it actually changed your routine, your daily approach?
There's two. Thank you, because I think there's two things that a writer needs to do. One is to write, and the other is to look after their well-being, their emotional state. And because one will always help the other, but alone, alone they are, in my case, a recipe for sort of disaster. So I look after myself emotionally. It's really important. You couldn't write a book like My Name Is Why if you were not looking after yourself emotionally. You couldn't promote a book like My Name Is Why if you were not looking after yourself emotionally. So what is that? To some it might be their religion, their faith. To some it might be meditation. And I think all of those things, my beliefs, I'm able to kind of hold on to them through this pandemic, through this storm. And then, I get to realize that I need to have gratitude. I live in my own place. I can afford to ride this storm at the moment. By the way, if you speak to me tomorrow and you say, "How are you, Lemn?" I'll be like, "I don't know. I know. But right now I'm all right. I'm sounding kind of articulate. I've just lost about 500 viewers, by the way.
Nice.
But the point is,
one at a time.
But the point is, I wish I could say this to young writers as well. Is looking after yourself will be, you can still have fun. Do whatever you need to do. But the idea of the writer as the self-destroyed kind of attic-dwelling introvert is a very attractive cliche. It's just not true. Yeah. Writers are on the front line when it comes down to any of the issues that are in society, and it's our responsibility to look after ourselves. But isolation is important to the writer as well. Isolation actually is part of what it is to be a writer. When I was a kid, I always had an answer to the question, that you would get in detention at school, which is, I think I had this answer when I left school though, which is, write a full 5 pages on a cornflake. What a great opportunity that is for a writer. There you are in detention, in isolation, having to write 5 pages on a cornflake.
Yeah.
And then, you can go into the cornfields, you can go into the farmers, you can go into production, you can go into the family that are eating the cornflakes, and yet there's this big problem around the table that nobody's talking about, blah, blah, blah. It's the gift that keeps on giving. So writing is good for isolation, but, we shouldn't be fooled to think that writers are not constantly connecting with the world as it is, And I hate how we're looked at as writers,
Yeah, and that's something we're finding more and more, especially now at the Society of Authors. I mean, we're one big community of 11,000 odd writers or authors of all types, and there's always a reaching out, connecting with each other, but especially now it's become more and more important, and that's partly why these festivals are happening. The SoA Home Festival is happening to kind of help a little bit of that connection. There's an incredible generosity in your writing, your campaigning, and throughout your work, and the generosity I referred to when I mentioned My Name Is Why, and it seems to me that right now more than ever we need that. What do you think that authors, whether experienced authors or new authors, can do to discover and share some of that generosity in terms of the way that they work, the way they reflect the world?
I think I think that we have I think we have a responsibility to do work outside of our creative field to make change happen. God, that sounds so general. What I mean is, you have a disabled grandfather, because we'll all be disabled at some point in time. Disability isn't something that happens to somebody else. It happens to everybody. It's just that, we don't realise it. What can you do for the rights of disabled children? You know of somebody who has a hard time because they're deaf. What is it that you can do for the deaf community, however small or big? It makes a difference. And I think the thing that I've learned is that, well, I don't know if my microphone's still on, but I'll keep talking.
Your microphone is definitely still on. I can't actually see you at the moment. So.
Yeah, no, me neither. But the thing that I've learned most of all is that when you do stuff for other people, I'm not saying I think mothers do just as much for their children as I've ever done for anybody, and fathers. So I'm not making myself out to be a better human being in any way, and I'm not lecturing either. But I do believe that that if you do stuff for others, it actually benefits you. I don't know. It's the weirdest logic that if you give away to other people, you seem to get more. That's what has happened in my life, and I didn't do it for that reason. You can't do it for that reason, but it's the strangest and most beautiful thing that gratitude and working. The working to make your environment a better place. That is, and it could be the smallest thing. I don't necessarily mean giving change to the person on the street, even though that's a good thing as well. I mean, choose your battle, man. Choose where you want to make change and then do it, because that's action. The thought of doing it first, then the vocalizing of doing it. These are people say, sorry about my camera, folks.
That's okay. We can still hear you.
What is it they say? We need action, not words. But words are action. As soon as you give voice to something that needs to be given voice to, you are actively part of that change. So that thing in the back of your mind that's really slightly irritated you, that as you give voice to that is the beginning of change. It's like going to a meeting at work and saying, everybody, isn't this room too hot? The moment you say the room's too hot, other people will agree with you and say, yeah, they were suffering because it was hot as well. And that's the same kind of change that you make in society. The moment you vocalize it, change starts to happen, and you start to realize, oh, there's a lot of people uncomfortable about this right now because you mentioned it. Yeah. Because you gave words. So words are action. And that's precisely what's happening now with Black Lives Matter, actually, come to think of it.
Yeah.
Giving words to a moment is incredibly powerful, which is why when people march, they sing songs and they sing poems and they hold up placards.
Yeah.
So one of the great things that may come out of this lockdown is that more people will do more stuff. And it's not just about having money to give. because we are the most powerful of all the resources that are around us. Us speaking now, that's how great change begins. And support organisations like the Foundling Museum, that works with young people in care. Support them. Find out what it is that you can do for them and with them. It's no longer, in my opinion, as an artist, it's no longer good enough to get your book deal. That's not the great success story. It's like, who are you and what is the change that you're going to make? And I don't mean in your book. It's all well and good for me to be banging on about stuff in poetry or in what have you. It's all me on stage. What can maybe I'm just getting to an age. I've been an artist all of my adult life now, and maybe I'm just getting to a point of like, it can't just be me getting on stage, being applauded, which I freaking love to be applauded. But that's not it. You know what I mean? That's not. You've only got
to imagine the applause in here. So I do apologise for that.
No.
But they're applauding, all 306 of them.
But I don't. It's funny, isn't it? This lockdown, because I don't crave being in front of an audience, but I love being in front of an audience. And there is a fundamental difference in that, because the no performance can happen without isolation. The artist, the writer, has to be committed to what it is that they're creating. And that has to be the biggest thing to you. The audience, they just get like the second handness. So if you love your writing, I'd love to, what I would love to do, this is totally aside, but I would love to do a workshop, whatever, with writers, just to allow them to enjoy, to allow them to enjoy the moment of connection on stage with their work.
Yeah.
Because they deserve to. Writers who are much better than me, they deserve to enjoy the process where they meet the public on stage and enjoy it. Writers don't deserve the stress that they go under, especially the ones that feel sort of exposed on stage. That process should actually be one which they enjoy, and I know how to do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, blah.
How was that when you first started? Because you've been performing for quite some time.
I have.
As long as Did it
many years?
I mean, did that comfort with it? Did that comfort or that confidence? Did that grow over time, or was it something that Did it feel natural?
I had it right from the beginning.
Yeah,
from the beginning. Yeah. Right from the beginning, from the last day of school when I read the poem that was commissioned by the head of year to the whole year. I had it from the start, but it isn't about the audience. This is the thing about people on stage. People think, "Oh, that's confidence." I'm not a confident person. I believe in what I'm doing, so I believe in my writing. So when I'm on stage with my poems, and Brian Patton said this. He said, I'm going to read a few love poems. He said, don't clap after this next series because they get jealous of each other. The point is when I'm on stage, this is going to sound really, but that's what we're doing. When I'm on stage, I'm with my friends. I'm with my poems. And when they walk out to the audience and the audience applauds them, I know their faults. I know their faults more than anybody knows their faults. I know when they were born, I gave birth to them. They're like your children. You're like, yeah, clap them now. You've not got to deal with them when we're at home. Clap for them now. And I love you clapping for them, but they're not me. They're a thing that I've been lucky enough to be part of the creation. So I don't feel, when I'm on stage, my ego isn't saying I'm better than what I do. I'm better than the creative process, than these poems. I can be on stage really confidently because I'm protecting them. I'm protecting my poems. I don't think anybody understands my poetry like I do. I don't think anybody understands My Name Is Why like I do. When people say my name is why, I could just as well say, so when people say my name is why is really personal, I could just as well say, well, how do you know? It's my business.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see, the ego says, I'm really nervous because I don't want to make a mistake. That's the ego. The ego says, look at him performing on stage. He's so comfortable. Who does he think he is? It's not about me. Mm. When I'm on stage, I'm with my friends. I'm like, you are the dons, and you are more than I could ever even dream to be. But I know your mistakes. I know, a poem is it's like you've made this clothing for the king or the queen. And then when the king and queen goes out into the crowds and the crowds might clap them, you know what threads you've dropped. You know where you needed to add more beading. You know all of the places which are just hung together for that moment. And so that's one of the great ways of being on stage. The best way to be on stage is it's not about you, it's about your work. Mm-hmm. That's why I can read the same poem 1,000 times over and it will always feel fresh because it's about giving that what it deserves, that piece of writing. You're beholden to do that. That's why you wrote it. And so you can then enjoy. The beauty of that is that this is going to sound weird, but what you've written can start to talk back to you. You can start to see in your own work that it is an entity in itself and that it is unconcerned with you. The moment you think that you can just read the same line over and over and over and over again, and you're just like, oh, let me get through this, it dies. You've let it die, and that means that whenever you're on stage, it's always a burden. Yeah. I do think, yeah.
I'll tell you what. Just looking at the messages over there, your suggestion of running a workshop to work with other authors that's a popular suggestion. Just looking at some of the comments that popped up then. So.
Yeah, I know writers who do that thing where I know, especially poets.
Yeah.
They'll do that thing where they'll be like they're angling for work. Mm-hmm. So they'll drop lots of do workshops on X, Y, Z. A Zoom one would be good actually, but and writers the thing is, writers deserve to enjoy themselves when they go out into the public, and it bothers me that a lot of writers have a lot of anxiety about public speaking. And I think that they deserve not to have that anxiety, but actually to find ways to enjoy that process. And also, it's about how you view what you do when you walk on stage. Mm. That's the thing, And there are certain practices that can get you to that place as well.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask about bringing, turning the conversation from very, very public Lemn to the process of what must have been a very private, difficult process of writing I Am Why, and My Name Is Why. We discussed the other day about the experience, briefly about the experience of writing the memoir from the documents that you finally got hold of a few years ago. Can you talk a little bit about the process of that? I mean, the whole book weaves your narrative with the original documents themselves. I mean, it's a fascinating balance.
It was a long process, but the defining process of My Name Is Why is to allow the files to tell the story. So I have 18 years of files which document what happened to me as the government was my legal parent in England. And I I think that's quite unique. I'm sorry, folks, but my camera's gone again, but it'll come back in a little while. Don't you worry about a thing.
Still hear you,
And
fine.
I wanted to use those files as the flags in the mountainside on the journey through my first 18 years and no more. Because I think it's quite unique that a person will have strangers writing their opinion about them over the entirety of their childhood, from birth to 18. And so it was simple. It was a very simple book to write.
Wow.
I had the guiding lights, which were the files, and all I had to do then was to write what happened in relation to those files. The fact is that most people who receive their files, who've been in care, live in fear of reading them. I know this because I know hundreds of people across the country who are in that situation. They get their files, finally they get their files, and then they're in fear of them. And My Name Is Why is me not having fear over the judgments made upon me in secret. And I wanted to out that secret because those files are public records, and that public record needs to stay public. So I was basically outing the system that messed me up. So there.
So there indeed.
And it was after taking the government to court as well.
Yeah,
Again,
yeah.
I'm sorry, folks, about this camera. If you just hold on, it will come back. And thanks, Karina. Can we look at the messages? Samantha
I was just going to
Flander.
say, let's get to a few questions. We've got one from Hannah Bernadette, she emailed just before we started, a couple of minutes before we started. And she said, I absolutely loved your performance at the banquet of the Great British Menu. Do you write differently for poems you perform compared to poems for print? Or are all your poems written for both?
No, but I think the better way to answer that question would be, do I write for poems to commission in a different way that I write for poems for my own self? And I think possibly. This is me walking around. You just caught me in my place. I'm trying to get the internet sorted. Stop looking at my gaff. Okay, so so I write. So I think sometimes, like the poem for the Great British Menu, which was the final of the Great British Menu, which was held at Exeter College, which is where Tolkien went to, and Philip Pullman, and my friend Anna Chojnicka. I write to commission, and sometimes it is not work that I might publish, but it might be just perfect for that televisual moment.
Fantastic. Just going to scroll through. Can you see the questions as well? I'm not sure if it.
No, I can't. I can see lots of really ace people like Anne Harrison and Peter Ruddy and Samantha Brooks.
Let's see. Okay.
Wow. Go on.
Samantha Flander. How can the UK best support different voices from new writers?
Different voices from new writers. Well, I think it's much more exciting than when I was a literature development worker at Common Word in Manchester, setting up a thing called Culture Word to promote Asian, African and Afro-Caribbean writers. We are in a good place at the moment with the work that Kit Duval is doing, to name one name, who's sort of working for working class writers. There are more writers of colour that I've seen now who are in Britain than ever in my lifetime. We have Bernardine Evaristo winning the Booker Prize last year. All we have to do is to read outside of our comfort zone. If you're, oh my God, there's so much great writing. Do you remember when Netflix came? And we were like, what, you mean it's not BBC or ITV? There is so much out there in India. I swear, if you can watch Bollywood films that are translated, but not just Bollywood films, but a whole lot of Indian films, which are mainly in Hindi, but then you can get them subtitled, there is a whole world of great films out there. So in other words, there is a whole world of great literature in the Caribbean. There's a whole world of great literature in India. Oh my! If you don't read Indian writers, then start reading Indian writers, because there is so much talent out there, and writers from Pakistan who are writing in English. Yeah, so read more of them is what I would say.
Brill.
I don't know whether I'm just banging on now.
No, it's allowed. It's your show.
Yeah, but there's a whole world of writers to read who are not like you, which is reading the Booker Prize is a great example of that. Yeah.
So, a question from I've lost Lucy Nyeko. She's asked, how long did it take you to write My Name Is Why?
A lifetime. Sorry, that's a really cheesy answer, because obviously I lived it. It took me a lifetime because I could only do it after I got my files, and I could only do it after I'd taken the government to court. So you could say we're so obsessed with time, aren't we? How long does it take you to write a poem, Lem? There are so many ways I could answer this question. How long did it take me to write the memoir? It took a lifetime.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. Why should I say that practically when I was actually writing it, it took me 2 minutes per line, which was stretched over 4 years. It's not like that.
Steph Morris has asked, how does it feel to have your work quite literally set in stone? Talking about the monuments from sides of pubs to South Bank Centre to Foundling Museum, I think.
Oh my God! Have you seen? Let me tell you this about the Foundling Museum. There's a room in the Foundling Museum, and this cup is what that room is. It's like a white room with names of people who adopted, fostered, or orphaned, mainly in literature, from the classics to the contemporary, from Richard Carstone, Robin, Spider-Man, Tom Jones, Yuri Zhivago was adopted, Princess Leia was adopted, Romulus and Remus were foundlings. That's from an art piece in the Foundling Museum. It feels good. It's nice. Wherever you find a poem of mine is my name. So my name is tattooed into the streets of Manchester and into London, in the city there and in the Royal Festival Hall. You don't look back as an artist. You don't really, unless you're creating your biography, like the one you read out about me at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wrote that. Anyway. No, I didn't. Well, I kind of did.
You kind of did.
It's like when people introduce me on stage, they'll say Lemn Sissay, Doctor of this, Chancellor of that, blah, blah, blah. And I definitely did write that with my agent in third person. As long as it's true. It feels good. What can I say? It feels good to have my name with my words. Yeah, it really does.
Question that has come up in quite a few of these sessions is, do you write by hand or straight onto a computer, or both?
I actually don't do either. What I do is I write. This is really important to the creative process, but I write in stone with a chisel, because I want to know that I'm connected right back to the days in Egypt where people wrote in stone, and to Moses, who wrote in stone as well, because you want it to last. So it takes some time, but it's I'm trying to be funny now. It's just not working. I can actually hear the brush of the audience. I can hear the log out button.
No, the numbers are still staying steady. They're still staying steady. So,
yeah, I write in a mixture of in notepads and on the computer. I've got lots of notepads like this and this. Yeah, it's suitably confusing.
And David Savage has asked. Oh, now it's a great name. He was asking. I'm not sure what he was referring to. So, was it therapeutic? I'm presuming he's asking about My Name Is Why.
Oh, writing. Yeah, is writing therapeutic? Is a really good question to ask. I'll tell you what's therapeutic. Therapy. Therapy is therapeutic. People, if writing a book was therapeutic, I would honestly have to visit my book every week and tell you my problems, but it wouldn't give me anything back. So it is not primarily a therapeutic process. And I think that writing is so rich that you could say that it was therapeutic, you could say that it was destructive, you could say that it was harmful, harmless, like any adjective you want will fit to writing. Not for any profession. Is it does it help feed your creativity? Maya Angelou said something like, the great thing about creativity is the more you engage it, the more creative you get.
Yeah.
And so, no, I don't think it is essentially therapeutic to be a writer or to write your story. Therapy is therapeutic. People, the thing about My Name Is Why, and by the way, this is the paperback, which nobody's seen yet. It was supposed to be coming out, and then lockdown happened. But people forget about the form. If the book affects you, it's like people don't realise that comedians work really hard because they're laughing when they're listening to the comedian. So if you enjoy a book, often people will think it's quite easy to do because they enjoyed it so swiftly. So the process is not therapeutic because I couldn't write it if I wanted it to be therapeutic. It's really important. It's another one of those, I believe, it can have a therapeutic effect and it can have an echo of kind of well-being or something like that. But my God, writing your story is no way of working through your stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, it can be worse. If you think working through your stuff is writing your poetry or your novel, then you're going to be stuck for quite some time. Oh, stop it. Sorry. I don't know why the camera has gone like this. So, yeah. I don't want us to go without me camera coming back on.
Yeah, we got time for one more question.
I've got time.
Yeah.
And could people come onto my Facebook page, by the way? I just would like that to happen if it's possible after this conversation, and we can carry on in Facebook.
That would be
Lemn
fantastic.
Sissay.
Yeah.
Yes. What was the question?
One other question. Where is it? Daniel Davis. Do you get upset that for the Booker Prize there will be one winner, but 120 books you've read that will not win?
Oh my God! I used to be a literature development worker as a publisher, and no, in fact, to be absolutely honest, not winning, not being in the public eye, is a very essential part of what it is to be a writer.
Yeah.
Why do you think that somebody who was running in the Olympics should win the first time? No, there's a whole lot of people who will never win a Booker Prize, but who will be incredible. So no, no, not at all. I have no problem with one person winning and nobody else winning at all. Because there's tons of things that you can enter your work into, and there is. It is not the sole way of being a writer. There's only ever been how many 51 Booker Prizes or some prize winners. So no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about the prizes. Don't worry about the audiences. Just work on the writing and work on yourself. Those two things are what's needed for a writer to be successful before anybody has read them.
Fantastic. Those are pretty apt final words, if that's because I think we are just about out of time.
My camera! I've turned into a criminal from the television program. I don't know which one.
No, we can't even see this.
I know, it's just, but it's all good. It's all good. We have been. I see more in radio, and to be honest, reading.
Here you are. I'm glad we're seeing you again before you.
It's a visual medium.
Yeah.
Because our imagination has got a greater palette than any visual medium can give us. Yeah. I believe.
Lem, thank you so much. It has been an absolute privilege.
I'm not going, man.
You're not going. You're not going.
I just want to say, can I just say a couple of things that I just wrote down really quickly? Okay. University of Manchester as Chancellor. I've got 2 more years in there. There's an Imagine documentary coming out on BBC 2, supposed to be in July, on myself, which should be fun. An extrovert is just an introvert trying to prove that they're not one. An extrovert is just an introvert trying to prove that they're not one. Thanks everybody for coming as well. I really appreciate it. Thanks to the Foundling Museum in particular, and Caro. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's been brilliant. And as Len says, please do join him on his Facebook page.
I'm going to Facebook page now.
You're heading there now. You're on Facebook.
I'm heading there right this minute. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, you've got about 286 people going to be following you there right now. So thank you so much. Okay.
Thanks, man.
Take care. That was, I really enjoyed that. Thank you very, very much for joining. I hope Lem's camera popping on and off wasn't too distracting. He is fantastic, and do join him on Facebook now. Next Thursday, Nicola Solomon, the Chief Executive of the Society of Authors, will be popping around for tea with Sarah Waters. That's the same time next Thursday. You can find a link for that on the events page of the SoA website. And again, just a quick reminder to say that all the sessions are free, but if you can afford to donate a few pounds to the Authors Emergency Fund to support authors in financial difficulty due to the health crisis, please visit the link over in the sidebar on the right. And thank you very much for joining. I'm just going to very awkwardly sit here and try and put a slide on the screen if I can. And now I'm probably going to just look like an idiot for a little while. And okay, I think that's, hopefully you can see that. Thank you very much for joining.